Do you think you're doing financially well compared to the average person? Well, it's quite shocking when you look at the numbers of how people save, how people spend, and how people earn in this country. If you're new here, my name is Will. I'm a 24-year-old full-time personal finance content creator, and in today's video, we're going to be looking at the 10 most mind-blowing money stats of the average person. So let's get into number one. The median salary in the UK of an average person is £39,039. And I've made it a case to make sure it is the median and not the average, because with an average, it definitely skews the numbers, especially with people living in London compared to maybe someone living in the Northeast. But we still have to consider the different regions, the different genders, the different ages of people. These are all major factors in how people earn. Now, if we look at the earnings, London definitely has the highest median earnings at £39,778. Whereas the Northeast sits at £29,584, which is a 25% decrease. Now, of course, obviously, property prices over in London are far more expensive than those in the Northeast, but this just gives you a good idea of, if you do live in the Northeast, don't compare yourself to someone who is earning £39,000. Some good news as well, and that's kind of weird to say for the UK, but the median salary grew by 4.1% last year, which is actually above inflation for once. So, yep, hats off to the UK, I guess. But aside the jokes, that is actually kind of a positive. We are not used to seeing wages grow the same rate of inflation. So I'm actually kind of happy that maybe we're getting the recognition we deserve, and you know, I don't know if it's going to stay like this forever, but at least we can hold on to this one for now. If you also look at this region graphic, which I've tagged in the description below, you can see if you play about with this, you get, say, the Highlands at £31,416, but if you move all the way down to, say, Kingston upon Thames, for example, the median salary is £41,823. So you can just see the major differences if you move up and down the country. Okay, so moving on to number two, which is debt. The average consumer debt, so that doesn't include mortgages or student loans, per person is £4,352. And the average UK household is £8,304. So this is on stuff like credit cards, personal loans, overdrafts. It just seems crazy to me that the average debt is over £8,000 in every household. And I am not just going to put this down to bad money spending habits. I do think the cost of living crisis has played a massive part in this. Food, rents, bills have all soared in price. And the money that people once had is going nowhere near as far as what it used to. So people are resorting to things like credit cards, overdrafts, and maybe even personal loans. I think spending habits also do play a part. I do think we are now so dopamine driven, so we have to kind of keep ourselves out of boredom. We can't just sit in a room, dark, alone, in our own thoughts. That's not something we can do anymore like we could in the past. We have to be doing something constantly. And that might be one of the reasons why we are spending more every single day, to just simply keep ourselves entertained. I think an element of revenge spending comes into it as well, because people are thinking, my money is going nowhere, so I may as well just spend it all, get into loads of debt and figure it out later. But in my opinion, that can't be the right mindset to have. You have to deal with the cards we are given. I understand it is tough for a lot of people. There are ways where you can add income through side hustles to make even just an extra £200 a month. There are so many options out there, and I can leave them in the comments down below. Also, I do think credit cards can be used in the right way, but that is only if you have good money spending habits and you know that credit cards are beneficial if you use them in the right way. Credit cards can give you loads of different perks like rewards, cashback, airport miles. You can visit hotels just using your credit card, and also you get so much more protection between £100 and £30,000 if you make a purchase through Section 75. So if you are someone who's prone to overspending, maybe don't consider a credit card. But if you are someone watching this video and you think, my spending habits are pretty good, then maybe consider a credit card. Okay, on to number 3, and that is trying to time the market. Statistics show if you missed just the 10 best days of the stock market over the past 30 years, you would be 54% worse off. And to put that into money figures, that is $106,677. If you missed the best 20 days, you would be 74% or $142,616 worse off. And if you missed the best 30 days over the last 30 years, which is such a long time, you would be 84% worse off or $161,044. This is why you hear almost every personal finance content creator with a brain telling you not to try and time the market. Time in the market is always going to be the best. Because if you simply just stayed invested over that time period, you would have ended up with over $192,000. But if you missed the best 30 days, you would only have $31,000, which is almost an $160,000 difference. So you can see why I'm saying time in the market over timing the market. I think sometimes as humans, we are definitely more overconfident, or we think we're cleverer than what we actually are. Cleverer, I don't even know if that's a word, exhibit A. But I think this relates back to the stock market so well, especially for men. We think that because we've researched maybe one stock in our lifetime that we can outperform the market and become Warren Buffett all of a sudden. But Warren Buffett himself is actually just an advocate of putting your money into a simple, low-cost global fund or an S&P 500 fund and letting that compound over years and years. He only thinks that 10 people, yes, 10 people out of the entire global population should be picking stocks and will beat the market. So if that is coming from probably the greatest investor of all time, I don't know why you wouldn't listen to him and just take some of your medicine and just stick with a simple ETF. But I digress. Humans are always going to be emotional monkeys. Okay, on to number 4, which is the average savings by age in the UK. So if you're between 18 and 24, the average savings is £2,699. If you're between the ages of 25 to 34, it jumps up to £11,023. If you're 35 to 44, that jumps up to £13,379. If you're 45 to 54, that actually goes down to £12,452. And if you're 55 and over, the average savings is £33,420. So what this shows me is the UK is clearly not saving enough money. Now granted, in this source, it doesn't actually say whether investments are included or pensions are included. I bloody well hope not, because if we are only at £2,400 by the age of 24, that is not a great figure to be at, really, is it? I understand this is the time period where you are at your lowest earnings and you probably are spending on experiences over savings, and I completely agree with that, to be honest. But I do also think if you can pay for these experiences, you can also put just £50 a month into a stocks and shares ISA, or just opt in to your workplace pension. But yeah, I do think this one is a little bit skewed and it's kind of hard to take seriously, because if a 55-year-old only has £33,000 in savings, there is no chance he is retiring anytime soon. But from my guess, what I'm thinking is this doesn't include investments. It only includes maybe savings in your current account or in your traditional savings account. But moving on swiftly from number 4 to number 5, you have the amount that people have in their emergency funds. According to the FCA, 1 in 10 people have absolutely zero savings whatsoever, and a further 21% have £1,000 or less in emergency savings. So that means if your tyre falls off your car, your boiler breaks down, or you have an accident on holiday, you are probably not going to be covered. And this is probably why people fall into debt, because they haven't prioritized an emergency fund before maybe spending on some clothes or some new shoes or just some useless stuff that they don't really need. I get for a small percentage of the UK, poverty is massive and they can't even afford to barely live. But I'm talking about the majority of people in the UK who can afford to live, afford to save maybe £50 a month towards their emergency savings, but are choosing not to. I can't stress enough how important emergency funds are, and I typically say between 3 to 6 months. If you're full-time employed and if you're self-employed, look to build a 6 to 12 month emergency fund. This is of living expenses, so this is only the essential stuff. So for example, if your living costs are £1,400 a month, that means you would times 1,400 by 3 to get a 3-month emergency fund, and vice versa for the other numbers. But in my opinion, I think emergency funds aren't just for emergencies, they're also for opportunities. If maybe you are in a toxic workplace that you absolutely despise and you do not want to have that job anymore, an emergency fund can get you out of that job. Maybe you quit that job if it's extremely toxic, you sit on that for 3 months, apply to so many different jobs and pick the one that is best for you, not just the one that comes up first. Because I do think in the UK, because we are so low in savings, that we jump at the first job opportunity that is thrown at us. Whereas in reality, if we had more emergency savings, that would mean you have more time to pick a job that is better suited for you and actually aligns with your goals and what you want. Plus, maybe you have a business opportunity that you want to start. An emergency savings pot gives you that freedom to quit your job and maybe try that business opportunity for 6 months. That is the freedom that an emergency fund can really give you. It's not just for emergencies. Think about your nervous system and the opportunities you want in this life. Okay, on to number 6, and I still can't believe this figure, but it has gone up recently in the last few years, but only 26% of UK adults have a stocks and shares ISA. This is actually a massive improvement for me because I remember when that figure was near 6%. So the fact that 20% more people now have a stocks and shares ISA, I definitely think we are going in the right direction. But in theory, I would love absolutely every adult to have a stocks and shares ISA in the UK. Essentially, what it is you can invest up to £20,000 every single tax year completely tax-free. So any capital gains or dividends you make from these investments are completely tax-free. So whenever you want to withdraw these funds, you don't pay any tax on that whatsoever. I truly think investing into something like an ETF is a cheat code for building wealth. Instead of keeping all of your money in a normal current account that is getting maybe 0 to 1% interest rate, the global stock market has averaged a return of roughly 9% over the last 150 years. So that compounded over years and years is going to give you a much better return for the money that you've worked hard for, maybe for your retirement, or for things like your children's university fees, or if you're helping them buy their first home or their first car. With investing, everyone's goals are different, and I cannot tell you how to invest or what to invest in. You have to figure that out for yourself. But it is so important that even if you just did 3 months of research on investing, you would be so much further ahead than what you are right now. Okay, on to number 7, and this one really surprised me. 46% of UK adults now have a side hustle. So to me, once again, that absolutely screams cost of living crisis. People are looking for different ways to add additional streams of income to their full-time job. And people think that if they don't work 2 jobs or if they don't have a side hustle, they will fall behind. And honestly, that might be the unfortunate reality of all this. If you don't have a side hustle or a passion project or something you're working on after work, then yeah, you could be falling behind. And to me, this is so tough to hear because I can't imagine if you're a single mum right now and you have maybe a couple of children and you don't really know what to do, you've got absolutely no time for a side hustle, you are barely living, you're just trying to provide for your family, that how tough this could be to hear that you need a side hustle to potentially make life a lot easier for you, because when is a single mum gonna find time? I don't even think it is just that as well. I think people are quiet quitting and have a side hustle because they don't want the 9 to 5 anymore. They want more freedom in their lives to do what they want with their time. Because I definitely think you see more content nowadays like, oh, I'm in Bali on a random Thursday, and then maybe a 9 to 5 employee looks at that and thinks, why aren't I in Bali on a random Thursday? And then it's kind of this like comparison loop, and maybe that is something that sparks people starting a side hustle, or they simply are just passionate about something and they want to share it with a load of people. I am absolutely not against a side hustle. What you are watching right now used to be my side hustle. I am so fortunate to be able to do this full time now, just because I was doing it on top of my 9 to 5 and working 11-hour days. Obviously, it wasn't easy whatsoever, but it was something I was passionate about, so it didn't feel like I was actually working after work. It felt like I was just doing something that I enjoyed. So if you can find something like that, I really encourage starting a side hustle. It can be one of the most game-changing things in your life. Okay, on to number 8. 15 million people are under saving for retirement. Now, I think there's a lot of confusion with this. I think people think that the state pension and private pensions are the exact same thing. So maybe young people are seeing headlines like, you will never get your state pension, and think that is what they're saving towards, but that is completely different to a private pension, what you're actually saving for. So the state pension age is rising to 68, I believe, soon. So people are probably thinking, that won't even be around when I'm that age, so what is the point in saving into a pension? But what they're missing is that a private pension, at the moment, you can withdraw at 55. It will be going up to 57. And yeah, once again, maybe we don't know what it's going to be when we're older. But what we do know with a private pension is it will definitely be ours because we have been contributing to that, so we have control over those assets. I also think the minimum auto-enrollment percentages play a massive part in this. Essentially, you pay in 5% of your gross annual salary into the pension. The government pays in 1% and your employer pays in 3%. So that is 8% of your gross annual salary going into a pension. So you're essentially getting 4% of free money. However, some experts are now saying that 8% will not be enough to retire comfortably when it actually comes to retiring. And the figures get even more scary for self-employed people like myself. Only 4% of self-employed people are putting money into a self-invested personal pension. And to me, that is absolutely wild. I understand as a business owner, you probably think, well, the business is gonna make the money, the business will retire me, but what if the business someday fails and you have absolutely no plan B? I am all for putting everything into your business, but I also think, why not just set a little bit aside into a SIP to grow and compound that over time so you have at least something for retirement? I think it's finding a nice balancing act between making loads of money through your business, but also just setting aside just a little bit for retirement. Okay, so on to number 9, and this one really surprised me. So now in the UK, we only have 442,000 millionaires out of a population of 69 million people. And as you can see from this graph, millionaires are exiting the UK faster than almost any other country in the entire world. We lost 16,500 millionaires last year. And that number just seems to be going down pretty much every day. I think the millionaires are just sensing that the UK is in decline. We are not an exactly growing country in terms of economic policies or just wealth in general, and making it easier for business owners or wealthy people. But also the increase in dividends tax rates, capital gains tax rates, and the freeze on inheritance tax thresholds can just be a massive burden on people with large fortunes. And I actually don't agree with these wealthy people. I think people should pay their fair share in tax. I don't think that someone at the lowest end of the spectrum in the country should be paying more tax than someone who is absolutely super rich with billions in wealth. The inequality gap is only getting bigger, but unfortunately I just can't see anything right now. Even Gary Stevenson's 2% wealth tax, I just can't see how that is going to come into fruition and actually help the economy. It is something we are going to have to figure out, because high earners pay a lot of this country's tax, but the super rich pay hardly anything. So We need to kind of find a balance between helping them high earners and helping the low earners and the middle earners, but also making it fair so people right at the top are paying their fair share. Like I said, it is just not an easy fix, but it doesn't surprise me to see so many millionaires leaving the country. And lastly, onto the final jaw-dropping money stat in the UK, and this one doesn't exactly hit home for me, but my girlfriend is a student, and the average UK student debt for someone in England is £53,000, 28,000 in Northern Ireland, and 17,000 in Scotland. So essentially, people who are working full time and who used to be a student and are over the threshold of paying that back are basically paying a 9% tax for the rest of their life. And the thing is, the soaring interest rates mean that even though you are paying back your student loan every single month, the debt is actually growing in value. So even though every single month you are paying that 9% tax for student loans, you are actually not moving the needle whatsoever with your student loan. And also with the loan repayment freezes and also the freezes on tax brackets, that means more people are going to be dragged into paying their student loan, which is essentially just going to make them even more poorer than they already feel. And the funniest thing of it all is most people will never even pay off their student loan, so I don't really see the point in them paying it, even though they have to, because it is not going to make a difference overall, and that debt is just going to get wiped when they die. It does not encourage a student who has been in education for years and years to overpay their student loans, because what's the point if the interest rates are just soaring and the value of your debt is just going up? So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that, even though it was a bit depressing, I can't lie. I will try and make obviously some more positive videos in the future. I do think there are things that we can do to become more financially literate and that we can implement into our behavior to become better with money. But I also think it is important to raise awareness to some of the issues that are clear and obvious in the UK. So if you want more personal finance content just like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, tap the bell notification, and leave comments of your thoughts on this. I promise more positive videos are coming, but I'll see you in the next one.